What if we just threw aside the whole idea that there is this kind of norm and create much more room for the breadth of human experience, whether it is neurodivergence or thinking about racial or immigration status or LGBTQ identity, all of these things. And I think when we do that, we can liberate all of us.
Welcome to Created Creative. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ruth. We are well into February, and now we're into Lent even.
Lent.
How was your Ash Wednesday?
It was good. Right before it, I had a sorority sister in town, and so I met her and her friends after their matinee, and then we went to a diner. And it's the diner where they created Seinfeld, not the one you see on the show, but like where Larry David sketched it out. So
Okay.
So I still came through as the resident New Yorker. How was your Ash Wednesday?
It was very good. We did have a snowstorm here, but we still had 92 people at the service at night. So they're big into their Ash Wednesday.
They're into their ashes. I do know our church, I was not involved. They stood outside from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. without interruption. We're giving ashes. Sometimes there was a line.
Oh, I'm sure.
So people really wanted the ashes to go. And we're at a busy intersection. It's like the last express stop as you go uptown. So there's just a lot of coming and going also.
That would be the perfect place to do Ashes to Go.
Yes.
I have done that, but it's a whole different feel trying to do it.
Right. Well, that's the thing with the walkable city. People are walking by. All they're doing is pausing for a moment.
During COVID, I did a drive up.
Oh, yeah.
And that was nice, too.
Yeah. Ash Thursday, which is not a thing. We went to the circus.
Oh, my goodness. Was this Lucy's first circus?
It was. We also found out, did you know the circus totally shut down in 2017 and then a different entity bought it?
Like the Barnum and Bailey?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So we went. It was very different. And we're like, what happened to the circus? It truly has been reinvented.
Wow. So how is it different from how it used to be?
Well, there were no animals.
Okay.
Which I had kind of heard the animals were on their way out. There was a robotic animal, which was fun.
Yes.
And there's no ringmaster, but there was a woman who was the host.
Okay.
It was very much a light show, very much a special effect.
And Lucy, about half of it was enough for her.
You know, we were very lucky, blessed. The person who's the head of video for the organization that now owns the circus, owns other entities as well, and I don't know his real job title, used to do video for the ELCA. So I've done many events with him. I know him well. And when he saw that the circus was coming to Brooklyn, he offered us free tickets.
That's awesome.
It was a lot for her. There were other small children, but it was really a lot. And so we left at intermission.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that.
So I'm so thankful that we could go and find out what the new circus is and also not feel pressure to stay because we paid a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm always a fan of the idea that just because you paid money for something doesn't mean you have to stay till the bitter end if you're just tired and not enjoying it.
I'm so worried for them. One person, because I looked at the hashtag afterward, which is how I learned about how the circus had shut down and all that backstory. Also, someone else who had been there with us that night posted one of these really complicated, scary tricks and wrote, how does one find out they can do this? How do you try the first time?
Can be very stressful to watch. I remember bringing the boys to a circus when they were little, and I was very nervous for the acrobats the whole time.
And acrobats, circus people, are the perfect people to bring us into this week's topic because they are living outside the norm. They've done the quintessential runaway with the circus. But our guest this week is really challenging norms and the ways we are expected to live our lives and how difficult it is for someone who just cannot do that for any number of reasons.
And I'm really excited for people to hear this and read this book.
I'm liking that we're doing this on the heels of last week. Last week, if you haven't listened, go back, was about discussing the other significant other. It's a book of people kind of living outside the norm, saying someone other than a romantic partner could be your lifelong person, even in a legal sense, co-parenting, buying a house together, a mortgage.
And different perspectives of that. She said there's 6 different chapters, and I think people will be really interested to hear more about the background of this book and how she's sharing it. So enjoy this interview with MaryAnn McKibben Dana.
Enjoy. Welcome.
Yeah,
Yes,
welcome.
thanks. It's good to meet both of you.
MaryAnn, we'd like to begin by having our guests introduce themselves.
Yes. My name's MaryAnn McKibben Dana, and I wear a lot of hats, but I am a pastor in the Presbyterian Church USA. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, the Northern Virginia side of things, where I've raised a family. We have 3 kids that are young adults. And in addition to working as a pastor, I also write. I have a weekly newsletter that has been just a passion of mine for a very long time. I have written books. My 4th book is coming out in April of this year, 2026, and it's really hard to believe that is a reality. And I also am a leadership coach, so I work mainly with pastors on just helping them find the ways of being effective or finding good balance in their lives. I know, Dawn, you do that work too. So
I'm so excited to talk to you about this.
Yes.
Great. Yes.
So I've been doing that since 2017 and have served a variety of churches in a number of different sizes and different kind of roles. And I like to garden, I like to cook, and I'm an avid runner. And so those are some of my applications. But yeah, little of everything.
You do wear many hats. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you cross paths with Casey Waite?
Yes. Have you had Casey on this podcast?
We have.
I would think so, with her amazing art. In fact, it'd be hard for me to turn my camera around, but I have a Casey Waite original actually over here, over my shoulder.
Yes.
And then I have a print of hers at the study at church. So, but yeah, Casey and I have done improv classes together and just a number of Presbytery things.
The
Casey's
Presbytery is doing improv classes? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes, actually. Not officially, but back when I was really into thinking about improvisation as a spiritual practice, as a life practice, there were other people who were interested in that topic. And so we've arranged for some classes, some one-time events. So we've a few times have been in those spaces together. So anyway, Casey's awesome.
And one of your books has improv in the title.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. God, Improv, and the Art of Living came out in 2018.
Perfect.
And that really grew out of my interest in thinking about how the biblical story is one of improvisation of God's people, like when things don't go according to plan, and thinking about God as a creative force in our lives, one that doesn't just have it all figured out like some kind of puppet master, but is in the mix with us in creative ways. And those classes and the training that I had and the work that I was doing came out in book form, and Casey was part of that.
So yes, and first rule of improv seems very biblical.
Absolutely. It's such a powerful approach to life in general. My interest in improv started really on an academic level, or kind of a theological interest of thinking about yes and as a way of thinking about how we move through difficult situations. And then the more I got into it, the more it really was sinking into my own life. And so it's just one of the things I fall back on more than anything else, I think. And the thing with yes and is you don't have to like what the yes is. Saying yes doesn't mean this is good. I would have chosen this for myself. Yes and is just, this is the reality. So what am I going to do with it?
As in improv,
That's right.
your partner will say a storyline and you're like, I don't like that, but we're going. We're going.
We're going to go with it. And it's my job to make it work, or to make, if I'm like, I am not going to have fun playing to, I don't know, dentists. It's my job to make it fun and bring my best to it.
Yeah,
So,
I love that.
yeah, good stuff.
It really is. And I think I didn't become familiar with the whole concept. Tina Fey wrote about it in her book.
Yes.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Bossy Pants. And I believe it is also a part of Amy Poehler's book, too. I remember reading both of those, and they express it so well. And I'm just waiting for Stephen Colbert's book, because the first time I ever experienced improv as a concept, I did drama as a young person in high school and college, but I never liked doing the improv. I liked having a script. I kind of still do. I'm that kind of person. But Colbert was doing a commencement speech back in 2006, and I saw it online, and he was talking about yes and as an approach for these graduates.
So, yes, your 4th book is coming out, and let's focus on that for a minute. Tell us about your brand new book that's being birthed into the world.
Yes. So the easiest way to explain about it is to talk about how it came out of my 3rd book. So the 3rd book that I wrote that came out in 2022 is called Hope, a User's Manual. I wrote it during COVID when we were all just trying to find ways to access hope and how are we going to get out of this really difficult and traumatic phase of our cultural life together. But at the same time, we were going through a lot with our own family, with my eldest, who was having some mental health stuff during high school, depression and anxiety. And that book was really an expression of trying to figure out how do we find hope when things feel like they're falling apart. And one of the things that grew out of that book, because actually all three of my kids have had struggles at different times. They're all grown now and I think are on the other side of the worst or the hardest part of that. But the thing with mental health is that it always needs to be nurtured and we don't ever know what the future brings. So to hold lightly the fact that we're doing well right now. But one of the things that we really discovered in this process of supporting our kids through this is that a lot of their struggles weren't because of something internal to them, but because there was something going on in the broader culture that was difficult and not a good match for the way they encounter the world. All three of my kids are neurodivergent in some way, and that is something that we didn't really know when they were younger. And so a lot of the things that would bring them stress from a mental health perspective were things that were present in the kind of air around us that I couldn't help but feel like if things were different, if they were in a different kind of cultural context, the stresses and anxieties of that would not have been present. So it wasn't something internal, it was an external thing. And so that got me started thinking about the book that would have become Better Than Normal. And what Better Than Normal is trying to do is really critique a culture that really looks at humanity in a very limited kind of way. That what it means to be human, there's a default when we think about what it means to be a person. And then there are people who live beyond that default. And what we often expect them to do is to conform or to mold themselves to fit this mold. And what we often will then do is say, well, let's be welcoming and inclusive of these different ways of being in the world. But there still is this sense of you are deviating from the norm. And so what I want to critique and examine in Better Than Normal is what if we just threw aside the whole idea that there is this kind of norm and create much more room for the breadth of human experience, whether it is neurodivergence or not, or thinking about racial or immigration status or LGBTQ identity, all of these things. And I think when we do that, we can liberate all of us for a much more life-giving kind of way of being in the world. So the book is divided into 6 chapters, and it's trying to move us from a value of kind of norm culture into something that is more expansive. So an example of that would be to move away from certainty and needing to have rigid categories of things, to move from that kind of certainty to curiosity, and what becomes possible when we open up and are curious about ourselves and about other people. And then it goes on from there. There are other shifts from this to that. And so we'll see what the kind of response is. I hope that it will give people some personal kind of food and nourishment for their own kind of lives and thinking about their families differently. But also we can talk about this because I know you all talk to people about the creative process, but there's so much vulnerability in putting something out in the world. And I want this book to change the world.
Absolutely.
I want the world to be changed because of what they find in my words. And that's one of the first times I've said that so audaciously out loud and not even saying it. I'm just like, ooh, ooh. To put that out there is a vulnerable thing. So I'm trying to look at this at multiple levels.
I love your idea of changing the world. I'm into it.
Yeah.
How would the world be if this book were to take hold and be one of the top 10 books everyone's reading?
So here's an example. Our middle kid was someone who really struggled. Very, very, very bright student. But the sensory experience of being in school from, 9 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon was really difficult. And yet that is the way that schooling is set up, that there's no other way to do it unless you look at really outside the box kind of options. And I guess what I would like to see is there are so many assumptions we make. I mean, the 40-hour work week, that is an assumption that grew out of the post-industrial revolution and having a weekend. This is a Henry Ford thing so that people would have time to buy his cars and be good consumers. And there are so many things that we just accept as just the way life is. And that's one of the gifts maybe that COVID did provide for us is we can do some things from home.
Yep.
We can part in alternate kind of arrangements and schedules and things like that. There's so much remote work now. I know we're in 2 different time zones, but I talked to someone this morning who was in the UK. And so let's just be creative about how we offer our contributions to the world. So that's just a small example of some ways that I think things can be different. It requires a lot of intention in terms of, we make a lot of assumptions, I guess. So to question our assumptions is probably the first step in moving towards a world that I think makes room for everybody.
This is kind of a random question, but you said you're an avid runner, and I noticed your watch, like that's a serious runner's watch.
It's
there.
a Garmin, yes.
Do you get
Yep.
creative ideas when you're running? Does that feed each other?
Yes, it does. I noticed that if there's a time, I live in the Washington, D.C. area, we've had what we're calling snowcrete. It snowed and then it sleeted and then it just froze hard.
Hardened.
And we don't have the equipment that you do up in the area where you are, Ruth, to handle that. And so I've been running inside, and I'm very grateful to have a treadmill because my mental health is very much wrapped up in being able to run regularly. But in answer to your question, yes, it gets the juices flowing. I am one of those. I know there are some people who are like, I don't run with my phone. I want to be disconnected from everything. I run with my phone for a number of reasons, safety and other things, but also because things do come to me and I will pull out my phone and just dictate a note or something like that. And I find that when I don't, it's totally gone. And sometimes that's okay. Like, I don't feel that in the moment. I feel like, gosh, that was such a good idea and I can't remember it now. But I also work on trusting that if it's a good idea, it'll come back to me. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Are you a runner also?
Oh, I used to be. Now I'm much more into yoga, but back in the day, I loved running, and it was good time for thinking.
Do you find that yoga functions the same as running did in terms of that creative opening up?
It's a little bit different because usually in yoga, I'm trying so hard to do what I'm supposed to be doing that it's nice. It's like all that I'm focused on is that movement or, trying to stay upright. Whereas when I was running, my mind could think more.
Yeah, it's the repetitive motion of running does lend itself to the mind becoming a little more receptive, maybe in a way that when you're trying to make a pose, you're really focused on that.
Both are good in different ways.
Makes sense.
Tell us a little about your actual writing practice. Like, how have you made time and space in your life to create these works of art?
Yes. I love this question because I don't have a good pat answer, and I hope that gives people encouragement because there are so many writers out there, and some of them are famous writers, and others are just people I know who they get up at 5 o'clock when the world is quiet, and that's their writing time. And I've just never had that kind of daily practice of writing. I had to find ways to create in the little interstitial moments of my life. And that meant writing while I'm sitting in the car while the kid is playing soccer or at the swim practice or cello rehearsals and things like that. And so there are practices along the way of helping me when I'm in that space. It's like, I only have 25 minutes. Can I write a paragraph? So it's much more integrated into my life than this is my writing time. And I think that's a function of being a mother and also a pastor. Just things come up and you have to deal with them. I will say that as my life has become more my own, and I always have valued this, but I have more space for it in my life right now, is writing retreats. There's a place here in Virginia that a woman bought an old farmhouse and converted it. It's not even a B&B, it's just a B because you provide your own food, but there's a nice communal kitchen there and several rooms, and it's specifically for writers. And so you come and work on whatever you're working on. If you want to talk with other people who are staying there, you can. Otherwise, you just stay in your own little space. And I really value that. So you can get pretty far, 25 minutes at a time. But I do find that for especially like the deep, putting it all together and editing as well, getting some time apart is really helpful. I will also say another practice that has really helped me is I started with a group run by a woman named Eileen Campbell Reed, who's someone you might want to talk to for this series.
Yeah.
She does the writing table.
We hear so many good things about her.
Oh, yes. So 9 a.m. my time, there's an hour, and she runs it. She has some people that do it with her, but it's like we're on Zoom and we're each doing our own thing and our cameras are off and we're muted. And yet there's something about people, it's like we're in a room together and you get the vibe of all of this mojo of other people creating at the same time. And what's really cool about it is I did meet someone through the writing table, and then she knew someone, and then she knew someone. And now I have this group of 5 women that we are from East Coast to West Coast, and we don't have a set schedule. What we'll do each week is we'll say when each of us is available. And if more than one person's available, we get on Zoom, and one of us is the timer. I imagine in this series you have heard about the Pomodoro method,
Yes.
which is, 25-minute timer, then with a little bit of a break, and then 25 minutes more, or however long you want to do it. But that's how long the kind of traditional Pomodoro is. And I wrote Better Than Normal almost completely via Pomodoro method, and with these women, a couple writing retreats along the way. So those are some really key practices for me.
I like that the book about thinking outside the box of traditional structures was written outside traditional structures.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
It's very true. I hadn't made that connection yet, Dawn, but you're absolutely right. It's a living expression of what I'm hoping to create.
Yes.
And so who are some of your favorite creators?
Yes. It's one of those like when people ask you, what's the last book you read? And then you just forget every book you ever read.
Yeah, you've never read a book.
Yes, exactly. What is a book?
What is a book?
My newsletter lately is hosted on Substack, and there are just so many really great writers there. And I find constant inspiration just from ordinary people. And what I really like there are the people who are writing for a couple hundred people. In fact, they have given themselves the name small stacks, like these, people who just care about the written word and show up for whoever is the audience there. But in terms of creative mentors, I really like the work of Austin Kleon. In fact, I think I have his books right over my shoulder. He's written 3 books about creativity: Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, and Keep Going. And he has a new book coming out called Don't Call It Art. And it is about learning to create like a child again. Children don't say, I'm creating art. They just play make-believe, or they draw, or they write a poem. And so that's what that book is about. So Austin Kleon is a kind of example of that. I would say, though, that someone that I'm getting a lot of inspiration from and have for a very long time is the singer-songwriter who's also a writer, Carrie Newcomer, I discovered her in the mid-90s, and she has really been providing the soundtrack for my life for a very long time. And she also writes beautiful poetry. She leads groups. Of course, she does concerts, which I've seen her many times. She's based out of Bloomington, Indiana, and she's someone who really inspires me because I think for her, it feels like the creative life is really a way of life. It's not something she does for a living. It's integrated into all that she does.
Yes. Do you know Christine Davies?
And I'm trying to think of where I have met her, but yes, our paths have crossed.
Substack.
Yeah, she's
probably. Oh, yes. She's a chaplain, right?
Chaplain up
yes.
lives in New Jersey. But I was like, well, she's Presbyterian and she does Substack. Maybe.
You know all the Presbyterians we know. That's where we're at.
Yes, it's a small crowd. Yes, chances are good. We have crossed paths. But yeah, Christine's great.
Yeah.
I love her work.
We had her as a guest some time ago too. Very insightful.
That's great.
So how do you see creativity and spirituality connect?
For me, the first thing that comes to my mind is thinking about that very often when I start writing something, I do other kinds of creation, but not as much. I really am mostly a written word kind of person. I knit and I like to make books. I took a bookmaking workshop, how to fold paper in such a way, and I just find that very fun and relaxing. But I'm very much a newbie there. But for me, I don't know how I think about something or how I feel about something until I start writing. And you would think after being at this so long, I would trust it'll come. But I still have that moment of, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't know what I'm going to say yet. That's the point. It does make it a little challenging because where do you start, right? You need something to start with. But what I love about creativity as it expresses our spiritual life is that it is a process. And this is true of improvisation as well. You can trace, I see how I got from point A to point B and point B to point C, but I have no idea what point Z is going to be until I do it. And that is true of life. And it's also true of the work. I just wrote a newsletter and I didn't know where it was going to go when I started it. And something always comes. There are times when I feel a little more creatively dry, but in general, something will arise. And so I guess I think of both spirituality and creativity as a journey, and we're along for the ride.
So writing sermons is probably similar.
Yes.
You don't always know where it's going to go.
Yeah. And that's also weird because when I was in seminary, they taught us focus and function, which is the focus is what is the sermon about? And the function is what do you want the sermon to do? And I understand why you teach new preachers that, because you do want people to get specific and not meander and all of these things. And I still sometimes will think about what am I trying to not achieve? That makes it sound like a kind of a goal, but like, what do I hope will happen? I think is probably a better way to ask that question. I don't always know. It's good to ask, but yeah, writing a sermon, I'm preaching on Sunday, and I still don't quite know where it's going to end up and how it's going to land. So we'll just say it'll be an adventure for writer and for listeners alike.
I was going to ask, so is your congregation, do they get interested in what you're currently writing at the moment?
It's an interesting thing because when the first book came out and I was serving another church and I was getting asked to lead retreats and things like that, and that part of my ministry was really growing. And I was also sensing that my time at that congregation was coming to an end. I'd been there about 5 years. And so from 2015 to 2021, I was what I call free range. I was leading retreats, I was coaching, I was speaking. And that was my full-time ministry. And then a church nearby needed an interim pastor to fill in for a little while. And then I ended up getting called as their associate pastor, which I do part-time, so I can still do writing and speaking and things. So this is the first time ministry, and that vocation has been very full. And the church that I was hired into knows that.
Yeah.
And I have to say, they just could not be more supportive and lovely. And it is interesting to have my life right out there on the page, whether it's on the screen, in my newsletter, or in a book, and to know that the congregation is reading that. And there are many congregation members who subscribe to my newsletter, and so they'll make reference to it. Oh, I saw what you wrote. And for the most part, I feel like they complement each other well. I try to make very clear what I say here. I wouldn't necessarily say this in the same way from the pulpit. They're just very different genres. My role is different, but I also make it very clear with people, like, you may know and come to see more revealed about your pastor's life than you want. And if you'd rather just have me be the person on Sunday morning, then proceed accordingly.
Don't read it.
Right? Yeah, that's up to you. It's an interesting kind of how do we navigate the boundaries around that. But for the most part, I think there was an era where people wanted their pastors to be above reproach and put them on a pedestal. And I think we're much more free now to be real. And I think that's a real gift.
Yes, I'm thankful that we live in a time that we live in, because I feel that too, that people are much more, they realize their pastors are human beings. And I'm glad there's room for you to be a writer and a coach and a pastor, because I'm sure each of these parts feeds you in different ways and in different parts of your personality. And so
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's part of the creative life too, right? Is giving ourselves the space to be more than one thing. And I think that's a real gift of my life right now, is that I can wear all these different hats at different times.
So as you think about those different hats, and whether it be, how you're going to publicize this book, or maybe it's a future project or any part of your life, is there something Dawn could give you coaching on today?
Yes, I have been thinking about this. So we're talking near the end of February and the book comes out in April. And I've been thinking about how to help tell the story of this book. And I think there's so much, especially in the kind of religious space around sharing one's work, there is a kind of discomfort with, am I self-promoting?
Right.
And I have thought about that a lot over the years, but each of my books has been a little bit bigger than the one before in terms of readership. And maybe I just need to work through some of my own feelings about it could be even bigger than Hope a User's Manual. The other side of that is it could just fizzle.
Right.
So maybe you can help me figure out the piece of that, because there's a little bit of interpersonal or intrapersonal stuff of how I'm feeling about that. But then also, what does that mean for how I share about the book?
Half an hour ago, you said it could change the world.
Right.
Is that still our thesis statement?
Yeah, I think that's true of so much that we put into the world, that we do hope maybe it doesn't topple governments and
Maybe it will.
things like that, but maybe it will. And I wouldn't be heartbroken to see some radically new things happening in the world.
Right.
And also, what would it mean to change the world person to person? So maybe what I'm called to do is tell the story person to person, but to leave open the possibility that large systems can shift through what we do.
Yes.
So.
And I wanted to make sure we're committed to it changing the world, because I feel like the call to change the world can help you get over the fear of perhaps promoting yourself, because you're not promoting you, you're promoting this idea. We could even say the Holy Spirit gave to you through your past experiences, your writing, your lived experience, your education, and you have been deputized. This is your thing to get out into the world.
Yes.
And so however you feel about it is something to do quietly at night, and we could continue doing it. But it's
Right.
almost a responsibility. You had this great idea, and who may suffer if you don't get this to them?
That's such a beautiful question. And for me, it becomes a matter of stewardship, right?
Yeah.
Which is a very, and it's not exclusively Presbyterian, but we love
Right.
that kind of sturdy idea of let's take care of and steward our resources, our gifts, all of this, right?
Yep.
And so promotion or sharing of a book or a work or created act, whatever it is, as an act of stewardship because of what it has the potential to do.
Yeah, it's
the
like you're
world.
not taking seriously the call to action that this idea has come to you.
Yeah. And you know what it is? Here's another place where I think our culture is not well suited for people who don't fit a sort
Right.
of standard is there's such a bias against overly sincere, like we're in a cynical age.
Yes, we are.
Right?
Yep.
Cynicism is very much self-protection, right? Like, I'm
Yes.
not going to try. And my kids who are young adults, they talk about things being cringe, you know?
Yes.
And saying, I really think that this could help a lot of people is cringy. Right. And yet that is what the moment, and I'm coaching myself here a little bit.
Great.
It comes at a cost to hold that kind of, like, I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard. I don't want to, whatever.
Yeah.
And that comes at a cost to ourselves, and it comes at a cost to what we're trying to share with the world.
So cringe is, I want you to buy my book, and the personal pronoun is in there. It takes half a step away from cringe to say, this great idea exists, and I'm just going to tell you about it.
Yeah.
If you want to know more, there's a book.
Mm-hmm. And I've also worked with writers sometimes in my coaching practice. And that is the shift that helps to make, and sometimes I forget that in my own life. And that's why coaches
That's why
need
we're
coaches.
talking. Yes. Yes.
Because it's really not about self-promotion. It's about this idea, which I think can really set a lot of people free and liberate so many of us from feeling like we have to be a certain way.
Hey, I mean, it feels like something the Stephen Colberts and Oprahs would be interested in, honestly. Like, Oprah Daily takes open submissions. There are a lot of places you could have quick national exposure for this idea. It's very much in the culture and of the moment.
Yeah. One of the things that the editor said when we were first doing the developmental edits of the book, which is how is the idea, is it sound? It's not the kind of line editing. But she said it's unusual for a book and a particular idea to fit a cultural moment. So like, this is needed right now. This is a right now idea. And so that both is exciting. All the exciting things are scary at the same time. Right. Those go hand in hand.
But this is very much, national outlets would be very interested in this topic. You'd have to get on it like right now, because they work, 2 to 6 months ahead. So
yes, right.
But that's not impossible.
Yeah.
And so it becomes about how many people could you ease their suffering by them meeting this idea. It's not about how you feel about it. We can work on that separately.
So what is the release date for the book?
April 14th.
April 14th. And people can pre-order right now?
Yes, it's available anywhere you can get online books. Big old Amazon, but I love Bookshop and love referring people there because it supports local bookstores.
Well, can't wait to see this book being born into the world and to see all the ways you're able to share it and this beautiful idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for Created Creative.
We're so glad you could be with us today.
If you would like to talk more about living outside the box, living creatively, be sure and join our Patreon, and then you will find out the details of when we are going to gather and talk about how you can live more creatively.
I can't wait for that discussion. And go create something.
Go create something.